provide a letter of an incomplete application. So some of these things are going to come pretty fast. And I do want to point out that state statute also identifies this, and the courts have generally demanded strict compliance with this 60-day rule. We do also have it in our city ordinance, section 4 under applications and procedures, under sub B schedule. The city council must approve or deny an application within 60 days. So if it feels like we're moving fast, we likely are moving fast, but it's a matter of statutory requirement.
Thank you, Aaron.
Yeah.
And we appreciate your efforts in having to go through the scheduling with that. I cannot imagine it is easy, so thank you for that as well.
Okay. Moving on to item 4. The background information. Designing Earth Contracting, Inc., an East Bethel company for 16 years, has outgrown its current location, and on June 9th of 2023, purchased 2 adjacent 2-acre plus parcel lots at the approximate location of 1282 187th Lane Northeast, here in East Bethel in the Sauter Commercial Park. A concept plan proposal was reviewed by city staff and presented at the May 23rd, 2023 Planning Commission meeting. The proposal consists of the construction of a 1,900 square foot building or facility for a construction, trade, or service business facility. These parcels of land are zoned light industrial, or I, in our code, which in accordance with the code, construction, trade, and service businesses are permitted by conditional use permit, and the exterior storage associated with the business or facility is also regulated by conditional use permit. The light industrial district was intended in the comprehensive plan to provide areas of the city suitable for activities and uses that are industrial in nature. The proposed application aligns with our 2040 comprehensive plan. The following steps should, after we hold a public hearing tonight, if a recommendation of approval is provided, a formal site plan review and site plan process should be submitted for review and approval by the Planning Commission and the East Bethel City Council. Staff are recommending the Planning Commission review the conditional use permit request, hold a public hearing, and make a recommendation of approval to the City Council with the conditions set forth in the attached Resolution 23-47.
Thank you, Aaron. Seeing as it's a public hearing for the conditional use permit, at this time I'll go ahead and open the public hearing. Anybody who wishes to speak on this, please come up to the podium, state your name and address for the record. Aaron, did we have anyone on the sign in over there for that?
It's not divided in any way, so
okay.
I'm not sure.
All right. Again, anyone else has anything to want to say for the Design Earth Contracting? Seeing none at this time, I will go ahead and close the public hearing. All right. And I would entertain any motions for discussion or motion based on what's in front of us to start discussion.
I'll make a motion to open discussion.
All right, there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor for discussion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and anyone like to take the floor first? Gabe, anything?
I mean, I think maybe more when we get to the concept plan, but this seems like a formality at this point, I think.
Yep, we went through a lot of this
Yeah,
last month.
yep.
I just want to make a comment. I'm talked to the hot rod shop behind there. Personal business. I was trying to get a car painted. I was a little bit overpriced. He does very good work. But my only concern is potential dust that will go over the fence into his lot. It's just right behind it. He does pretty high class restorations, and as long as we can be sure that dust levels are kept down, I don't see any problem with this CUP.
Does he store the vehicles outside once he's, tended to them?
I believe
Or
the
does-
business owner is here if you'd like to answer any
Sure.
questions.
I could offer, the existing location for Design Earth Contracting is actually right next door to the Hot Rod Shop on the south side.
Yeah.
So they're also in an adjacent parcel currently.
Sure.
Did he express any current issues?
No current issues. There's a tree line in the way, so I don't really think there will be,
Yeah, between that and the fencing.
but just to ensure that there's no issues. I don't know if we should mention it or just assume.
Again, no, only, I'm not gonna speak for him, but referencing from when he was here last month, he seems pretty agreeable to most things and a pretty understanding person, so hopefully they can be neighborly if there's an issue.
Sure. He did state that he would maintain his lot.
Yeah.
I think there's a nice car wash coming up in that quick trip across 65 here, so.
Nope, no car wash at the quick
No
trip, it's
car
gonna be
wash,
at Holiday.
no.
Holiday will,
Holiday, okay, even closer.
that same side, so shorter
Perfect,
distance if he needs
perfect.
to. Alright. Anyone else have discussion on this?
I do want to point out to the planning commission that the conditional use permit for storage is also included within the same application and material. The conditions for exterior storage are listed on page 13 in the resolution. If you want to review A through E and make sure you're comfortable with those conditions for the purposes of exterior storage, that would be appreciated by staff.
Nope, thank you for the reminder.
That was kind of a point of our discussion the last time this came across. You know, that's been a big concern, especially with the resolutions to change the ordinances. So,
Now, we discussed whether this was a construction yard. I guess my perception of a construction yard is a property that's under development, where this is more of a construction business. Is that,
Our ordinance reads construction sales or construction service are in the same category. So whether you do construction and that's your home base and you store your equipment there, that's construction service. Construction sales would be the sales of material, equipment, that sort for the purposes of the industry of construction.
thank you for the clarification.
Yes. I would point out that the ordinance revisions for exterior storage that were discussed at the last month's planning commission meeting were approved last night at the council meeting. However, they don't technically go into effect for 10 days, now 9 days. So these storage parameters are based on the new upcoming ordinance. That's how I wrote them, because I knew there was
Which
a
are not
strong
in effect
likelihood that that would be
until-
in effect when the conditional use permit will make it for approval on July 10th at the city council meeting.
Way to be prepared.
foresight.
Thank you. Being as staff brought this specifically up, anything in specific to number 2 in the resolution for the exterior storage limits that anyone have an issue with? Or want to take up for discussion?
Nothing.
Okay. Right. If there isn't any further discussion, I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the CUP of Lot 11, Block 1, or Resolution Number 2023-47. A resolution approving a conditional use to allow the construction of a construction trade and services business with exterior storage at 1282 187th Lane Northeast, East Bethel.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. That has been approved. Our motion passes for approval to go to city council at,
July 10th.
thank you, July 10th.
Yes.
And continuing on with Design Earth Contracting, moving on to item 5A for the site plan approval. For Design Earth Contracting, again at 1282 187th Lane Northeast.
Thanks again, Mr. Chair and members of the commission. As promised, this is your site plan approval. If you will, I'm not gonna reread the background information. It's identical to what I put in the conditional use permit. I did do a review based on the ordinance for site plan review. The property is zoned light industrial, as we talked about, which construction trade is a conditional use permit. Code requirements that a site plan review be conducted prior to a building permit issue. Architectural design, I've reviewed the architectural proposed design. It's consistent with the standards as defined in our city code and the zoning district for light industrial. The proposed landscape plan actually exceeds the landscape code requirements in city code. The lighting plan, staff, I've reviewed the lighting plan and is in compliance with city code. The parking plan consists of a total of 45 parking spaces divided between 19 paved spaces in the front for the office, 2 handicap stalls, and an additional 24 yard stalls for warehouse. This combination of parking spaces meet city code for off-street parking and loading requirements by the ordinance. And additionally, the grading and drainage plan, easy for me to say, will need to be approved by the city engineer prior to the issuance of any building permits. I did not have that information as of today. I left that off of the staff report. That was one item that was added because I had not heard back from the city engineer. According to the plans, it appears that there's a drainage pond, which might require a pond maintenance agreement, but I will let the city engineer identify that requirement. However, that is included in the resolution for the stormwater pond operation and maintenance agreement if necessary,
To be approved by the engineer.
if the city engineer requires it.
Thank you for that. And, we can either have a motion for discussion or go right into a motion and then a discussion.
I'll make a motion for, to open discussion.
Second.
All right, I think Glenn beat you to it, so motion and a second. All in favor for discussion, say aye.
Aye.
All right, any opposed? Hearing none. Again, I will open the floor to first opinions.
So then I do have a question, actually. Do we need to write into here somewhere, or put the condition that this is conditional upon the engineer's report?
I think based on the way Aaron had worded it, he already had it in there with the verbiage for the, if the engineer requires.
Okay.
So I think that would cover it, correct, Aaron?
Item 3 in the resolution, page 21. Prior to issuance of a building permit, the city engineer must review and approve a drainage and grading plan.
Okay,
That covers it right there.
thanks.
Great. Any further discussion on this? Again, I know we had a pretty lengthy discussion last month in regards to this. I don't see really anything changed from where we were with it, so.
There are several technical pages with lots of plans and information. I can assure you that I went through each one of those. Those are all the steps along the way for all the underlined items on the staff report and verification with city code requirements based on each one of those pages, which is what the city engineer will also do.
Yep, which is why we appreciate the advice from, from staff, which makes our job easier so we can help give advice to council that they can take or deny as well. So, all fall part of the bouncing ball.
This is the first time I've seen the lighting display,
Yep.
you know, as far as light pollution. I think that's neat. Has this come across and I've just missed it?
That's
I
the
did
first
see
one
it.
I've seen
Okay,
of it.
sure.
In this format.
Remind me what page
This
that
is
43.
just before, yep. Now,
Yeah, this is the first time I've seen one of these in the packets as well. I thought it was,
so
technology is a fun thing.
You mentioned something about the lighting. Is this gonna become a requirement, or is this over and above again?
So this is a requirement
Yep.
by city code, but this particular diagram is not a city code requirement.
We
This
should
just
make
makes
it.
it much easier for me, thanks to the applicant's engineer
Yeah,
for putting
yeah.
this together. Makes the approval process much faster.
Yes.
Noted.
Yeah, so again, meets and or exceeds.
Yeah.
Right. Any further discussion? Excuse me. Any further discussion on the site plan?
I'd make a motion to approve resolution number 2023-48, approving the site plan for this site. Oh, with the staff recommendations included.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Site plan is approved for our recommendation to City Planning and Zoning also on July 10th.
July 10th.
Thank you very much. Thank you to the Design Earth Group Contracting for putting together a well-put submission. It is approved, it is appreciated and noticed. All right. And moving on to item 5B, meets and bounds for a parcel split at 2863 221st Avenue Northeast.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a new one for me. I have not done a meets and bounds split since being employed here just under a year, or just over a year ago. So I referred to the city ordinance, which is included in your packet, for the purposes of what is required to do a meets and bounds split. We can all learn together. On June 15th, Steve Strandlin, on behalf of the Vernon Strandlin Trust, submitted an application for a meets and bounds split of a 39-acre parcel located at 2836 221st Avenue Northeast to split it into two parcels. The first parcel, the original family farmstead, will be divided off as a 5.66 acre lot, and the remaining 34.16 acres will be subdivided at a later date as a future rural residential subdivision. The property proposed for the division is zoned rural residential, as I said, and per city code, the minimum lot size for any division in the rural residential is 2 acres. To be eligible for a meets and bounds split, as defined by city code, the following conditions must be met. Number 1, the parcel must be a minimum of 5 acres. The parcel must have a minimum road frontage of 300 feet. The parcel must contain 23,000 square feet of buildable area. The appropriate road, public utility, and drainage easements as outlined by Ordinance 151 and as amended must be dedicated to the city. And park and trail dedication fees as adopted by the city council by resolution must be paid at the time of the certification of the new parcel division. This request for meets and bounds parcel split meets the conditions because it has more than 5 acres, has over 300 feet of road frontage, is an existing primary residence, which has more than 23,000 square feet of buildable area. It has a current house on it, and it is in compliance with the road, public utility, drainage easement. It is on a county road, and the park dedication fees will be paid at the time of the subdivision of the rest of the 34-acre parcel. So you are requested to review the petition and application for meets and bounds parcel split as staff believe it satisfies the requirements of city code, and make a recommendation to the council to approve the meets and bounds parcel split.
Great. Thank you, Aaron. I'll go ahead and make a motion for discussion on the meets and bounds split.
A second.
Thank you. Motion and a second. All in favor for discussion, say aye.
Aye.
We are discussing. I'll be honest, Aaron, you put, for first time, put it well together and made it very simple, and so that again is appreciated.
I feel like I'm doing my master's degree homework all over again.
And again, better you than me. No, personally, I don't see any issues with this as it sits and reads currently. It looks like it's.
I'd just like to maybe refer to our city vision plan and the guidance that's presented in there. It's slightly different than what the ordinance states. I sent Aaron some information. Do you have that information?
I sure can pull it up, you bet.
And this is just verbatim what's in our vision plan.
earlier today, right? Here we go. I don't know if I can make this any bigger, Joe.
Well, that's fine. So the East Bethel 2040 comp plan is our vision guidance on what we're trying to do with the city. It's kind of like a promise to the residents on how we're going to progress with development in the future. And so in this comp plan, it tells property owners what they can do with their land depending on whether it's in the 2030 MUSA, which is a mixed-use service area, or the 2040 mixed-use service area. Property owners are restricted as to how they can subdivide and develop the land based on whether and when they'll be sewered. And so our current 2040 guidelines for this property are to allow the property to be split into a minimum of 1 unit per 10 acres. This proposal doesn't quite fit within our vision. And the assessment is splitting the property beyond the minimum 10 acre guidelines of the 2040 comp plan will result in suburbanization of rural areas protected under the 2040 comprehensive plan. The reference is chapter 3 of our 2040 plan, which talks about land use, and it's on figure 3.8. So in the map, the red dot in the center, or the red square, is where this property is located. To the west, or to the left, is where our 2040 MUSA is, which is kind of by Boat World. Then down to the south, that green boundary is our mixed-use district, city center. And so if we could go to the next slide. This just is guidance that was given to us in our comp plan. This land is outside the urban service boundary and the future growth area, and so you can see that our guidance is to allow development of 1 unit per 10 acres.
Mr. Chair,
Please.
if I can, Mr. Reader is not correct in his acronym. The MUSA is the Municipal Utility Service Area, not the Mixed Use Service Area. The Municipal Utility Service Area is the future area upon which the comp plan identifies as potential to receive city sewer and water. This parcel is far beyond the future use area in the corridor of Highway 65. Therefore, some of this guidance doesn't apply. And our ordinance, which is on the books, there's also a reference in the long-term comprehensive plan, which identifies that the rural residential designation allows for overall average of 1 unit per 10 acres. However, higher densities may be achieved by utilizing the Met Council's flexible development guidelines. The flexible development guidelines identify conflicts between the comprehensive plan and existing city ordinance, and it states that the existing city ordinance takes precedent over the guidelines if there is a conflict. In addition, 1 unit per 10 acres for the entire rural residential area of East Bethel. If we define the municipal boundary of East Bethel, it's about 48 square miles. I didn't do the quick math to determine how many of those 48 square miles are rural residential. I'm guessing our density is much below 1 unit per 10 acres if we encompass the entire rural residential area on both sides of Highway 65 in the city of East Bethel.
Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you.
There's
Well
that
said,
master's
well
degree
said.
at work again.
And thank you. I guess looking at one document and comparing it to the other, there's some confusion on what's allowable. Just due to the way that this one's written.
It's just as confusing for me, and I have to do the research and pull things apart and understand which goes with where and how it's going to get there. Although it's not in our 2040 comp plan to reach this parcel down to 21st, it might be sometime beyond 2040 if this is even considered a future use area just based on proximity to Highway 65.
And within the next few years, we'll be going through another comp plan review. A lot of this stuff comes up when
We
that,
are,
when
we
go-
are obligated to require, or we are required and obligated to review the comp plan on an annual basis. Make revisions as necessary. This is a living document. It's not the law. It's not black and white. This is or isn't, and that's why they put in that provision for the conflict.
Sure.
Again, thank you for the fine detailed work on that. Any further discussion?
I have a question about the lot line, and it might, Mr. Strandland might be the person to answer. The lot for the existing home, does that doesn't include the tree line, or it does?
Do you have that sketch here?
I do.
Thank you. Right on the edge there.
Okay,
Which tree line were you talking about?
okay,
So which tree line were you wondering?
East one, I'm assuming.
yeah, okay.
Let me
So
get
this-
back to-
Okay, so the existing home, the lot line basically runs along the existing driveway? Is that correct?
Yeah, you want
Okay.
to draw there.
All right.
Yes, I don't know if I can, but.
Yeah, yeah, I know.
So, if you can see on page 45, Commissioner Allen Spatch, there is the driveway's drawn in on the 45.
Okay,
Like that?
here we go, yep.
There's a,
There it is.
there's a lot
Okay.
line, a proposed lot
Right.
line
So
around
then-
where that driveway is.
All right.
So that'll be in this neck of the woods right here.
That's, no, it's over,
It'll be this one?
Yep.
Yes, okay, I'm sorry, yep.
runs straight south.
Yes.
Just encompassing that driveway, just south of that building to your left.
Including this.
Yeah,
And then the property line is the red line.
Yep, right there.
But it encompasses the white fence that is there. That's why
Okay.
we opted to do it 5 acres instead of 2.5, because it encompasses that portion. Because it's all to the west of there.
thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
This is-
Franlin.
I read that, but then when I drive by it, which I do every time I leave my driveway, it was kind of hard to figure out, so, yeah, thank you.
If there were any questions regarding the ordinance about having a detached accessory structure prior to a primary residence, I've had a conversation with the applicant about the garages, the barns, the buildings that would be on the outside of this parcel division. At a later date for the subdivision, those buildings will be disappearing and they wouldn't be existing then on a parcel prior to a primary residence. So
I
that's
assumed it
part of the,
happened.
part of the process.
Again, thank you. And thank you, Steve, for the information on the property. All right.
At risk of showing my true colors, I'm still kind of lost as to what makes the meets and bounds parcel split different than what a traditional parcel split. Can you put that into?
Yep, so we're taking a section or a half section or a quarter section
Yeah.
of the section map, and we're dividing it into another quarter or another half or
Okay.
another almost perfectly square
Mhm.
piece of a quarter section, half section, full section.
Sure. So that's why it splits between the buildings there.
It'll be a square,
Yeah,
a 5
yeah.
acre square.
Got it.
If you'd like to come up to the podium to speak, Steve, that'd be great.
Another way to describe the meets and bounds is, a meets and bounds parcel is by description, so many feet,
Mhm,
degrees, so
mhm.
many feet, degrees, where a plat is lot 1, block 1.
Sure.
You know, that's also, that's the or the two different ways of describing the parcels along with the criteria to do so.
My
Thank you for
hypothetical
the
would,
education.
would be when, back before we became as modernized as we are and a family wanted to divide off the farmland amongst the kids, it was easier to divide it into squares and give
You
each
get
quarter
this
section or
section,
half
section,
section
yeah.
to the kids as things go instead of how we have creative subdivision lines now for developments, so.
Thank you.
Great. There's no further further discussion? Would anyone like to make a motion? Or motion to deny or approve?
Make a motion to approve the meets and bounds parcel split at 2863 221st Avenue Northeast.
I'll second.
Great. Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. This also goes before city council on July 10th.
Correct.
Great. Excuse me. And moving on to item 5C, the Viking Meadows concept plan and plan unit development.
Give me 1 second to
Yep.
get this loaded up here.
All right.
For clarification, is this the plan or the proposal? The plan is,
This would be the concept plan review.
so it's not the official,
Next steps from here would be a preliminary plat, which would be the measured out, if you will, lot block, design, streets,
The grid.
engineering, those kind of things for us to consider after accepting feedback. I believe the developer has committed to and is looking for input, advice, and direction on how they can design this subdivision or development so that it's acceptable standard for the community. So
is this the plan that's regulated under section 66 of our city ordinance?
this would be a requirement in the application process to reach preliminary and final plat stage.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
And as you'll see in the packet too, under the action required, the last part of that is, discuss the concept and plan unit development and informally and advise the developer on adjustments to the proposal of the plan. All right.
Okay, Planning Commission, is requested to review a concept plan proposal for a mixed-use planned unit development as proposed by Capstone Homes Incorporated. The development consists of approximately 165 acres, of which 115 acres are considered buildable. And this location is at 1788 Viking Boulevard Northeast. The developer has submitted an application and supporting materials for the planned unit development, of which most are attached for your review. The large tract of property is located on land which spans across zoning classifications of mixed use, single-family residential or R1, and rural residential. Over 70%, or approximately 123 acres of the proposed development are located in the mixed-use zoning district, while 11%, or approximately 20 acres, are in the single-family R1, leaving 17%, or 30 acres, in the rural residential zone. According to city code, a planned unit development is required in all mixed-use districts of the city. Mixed use allows for commercial, residential, parks, and open space as such are in compliance with the East Bethel Comprehensive Plan. The purpose of a PUD, or planned unit development, is to allow flexibility and variation from conventional ordinance standards in exchange for higher standards of development, design, and creativity, architectural control, natural resource protection, landscaping, public parks, public and private open spaces, pedestrian access, multi-use corridor opportunities. The planned unit development provisions are also intended to promote the efficient use of land and promote cost-effective public and private infrastructure systems. The attachment 3 in your packet is the city ordinance, section 56, the planned unit development district. The concept planned unit development application was submitted to staff on Wednesday, June 21st. Staff are in the process of reviewing the plan. Comments will be provided to the Planning Commission and the City Council and the developer once all reviews have been completed. A phased concept plan has been proposed by the developer for the entire development. The concept plan review should encompass the project in its entirety. However, during the platting process, the PUD standards will be approved for phase 1, and future phases would be required to meet PUD standards as amended if necessary to include new standards for each phase should they come into effect. The plan unit development concept plan is used to provide feedback to the developer through staff, the planning commission, I'll say Parks Commission as well, and the city council. As part of the preliminary review, staff have offered the following comments. I'm gonna make a small deviation from this as I was out on 189th today. Ingress and egress to the development will be accessible from 2 locations, Viking Boulevard Northeast and Sand Hill Parkway. The city staff would propose that 189th Avenue access be for emergency vehicles only until a future date when engineering and other decisions can be made about 189th's upgrade and those kind of things. Our concern wasn't necessarily the access to the development, but yet the access to the existing county road that's there and the blind curve just to the north. The city engineer, public works manager, and Anoka County Highway Department will be conducting reviews of the street plan when provided and will provide feedback and comments. Under the open space concept, the primary function of a PUD is to encourage development that preserves and enhances the natural characteristics and valuable natural resources of a site and not force intense development that uses portions of a given site to arrive at the maximum intensity or density allowable. Capstone has proposed over 50 acres of open green space of the 165 and 115 again, as a reminder, are buildable acres of the development, which includes over a 1-acre park in addition to walking trails and unique landscape buffers from Highway 65. Under the category of streets and cul-de-sacs, along with utilities, should be constructed in compliance with City Code Section 66, which requires that streets shall provide future connections to adjoining undeveloped or unsubdivided land. So the land south of this proposal would be undeveloped. Staff recommends that the streets be maintained by the city throughout the development. Under the category of housing, the plan consists of 350 new single-family homes in 2 neighborhoods with a combination of 45-foot and 65-foot single-level, multi-level, or 2-story floor plans that have been proposed. Under city services, the plan indicates that the new single-family homes will each be connected to the city sewer and water, as a majority of the development is in the MUSA, the Metropolitan Urban Service Area. And under density, the plan consists of a density at 3.04 dwelling units per acre, which is within the low density range of 2.24 to 4 units as identified in the 2040 comprehensive plan for the MUSA. That table is attached for your review. As I stated earlier, the concept plan will be placed on an upcoming agenda for the Parks Commission for their review and comment. And the next steps, as we've already talked about, is the developers looking for input, advice, as well as direction on how they can design an acceptable preliminary plat for review. And again, at the time of preliminary plat, the standards for phase 1 of the PUD will be determined. Staff is requesting that the Planning Commission hold a public hearing and discuss the concept plan, PUD application, and informally advise the developer on potential adjustments to the proposal and the plan. And the developer is here and can answer questions that we may have. I would recommend we hold the public hearing first and go from there.
Great. Thank you, Eric. Very much appreciate it. That's a lengthy one. So again, this is a public hearing, so at this time, I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing. If you want to come speak on this matter, please come to the podium, speak your name and address for the record. Please note we'll be noting down the questions that you're asking, so in an effort to not have so much back and forth individually and to keep the meeting moving, we'll take your questions. Again, make sure we try to answer them as best we can. Typically in scenarios like this, we'll have the developer come up after the public hearing is closed, or right at the end of it, to have them answer a lot of these questions. And if we, feel based on the questions, we need to keep it open after their comments, and there's additional feedback, we'll do that at that time as well. So hopefully that's understandable for everyone. So at this time, I'll go ahead and open the public hearing for this. Again, anyone wishing to speak, please step to the podium and give your name and address.
Maybe if you want to, Tanner, start at the top of the list,
Yeah.
just so we can make sure that everyone has an opportunity, and then if they haven't signed up, they can feel free to.
Wonderful. Randy?
Sure.
Randy Johnson, 18816 Greenbrook Drive, Cedar, Minnesota. I guess my only concern is, I had to follow the rules when I built my new place. As rural residential, I know that a big chunk of that is rural res. I'd like to see it stay that way, the 2 acres that we heard earlier today. I don't see a reason that should change. Whether it be a development or not. I don't know. I guess I just hate to see it disappear that way.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tim?
My concern was addressed about traffic going up and down 189.
All right, thank you. For those who didn't hear and watching the video at home, the resident said his questions were answered with Aaron's comments on 189th. Phil and Patty?
So we live 2030, 189th, so this block right here, rural residential, backs up to our property. I second that, I'd like to see it stay rural residential. We bought our property 4.5 acres, and we want to live in a rural community, so we don't really want multiple rooftops in our backyard. Second thing is, so they did address the 189 with the blind curve, but you said it'd be left for emergency access. So the access will go all the way through. Is that going to be paved for emergency service? Who's covering that? Are we covering it?
Do you want me to answer, or should we wait?
Let's wait, if you don't mind. We'll make sure we get it, but yeah.
That's fine, these are just like some questions. So if there's a through road there, they're going to use it. If there's a golf course there currently, the employees use it. They go down it very quickly all the time. It's already pretty impactful. So if there's a throughput road there, it's going to impact us. Those are my 2 major concerns.
Yeah, and then I guess just the other thing is if city water and sewer were to ever be brought down there, what is the likelihood that we'll end up having to tap into it?
Okay, we'll address that as well.
Can I get your name, just?
Phil.
Phil, okay, thank you.
He's on here too.
Yeah, I just didn't hear it, sorry.
Okay, great. Kyle Granlund?
I wasn't planning on speaking, but I thought that was a petition to squash the whole deal. Well, my only thing is.
Oh, please, sir, please state your name. If you could state your name and address.
Kyle
Just
Granlund.
those who watch
Yeah.
online can't hear if you don't talk
Okay.
into the mic, so.
Yep,
even when you
Kyle
turn around, they
Granlund,
can't hear you.
2043, 189th Avenue. And that square radius here, there's only about 50 to 40 houses, and then you guys want to put in about 100, or what'd you say, 375? 350? So that seems like a lot in this area versus this area. I mean, it's a rural, residential, we like it, county road, sorry, I'm a little nervous, I'm not used to speaking in front of a lot of people like this.
Take your time.
That's
It's
fine.
okay.
Yeah, sorry.
You're
Sorry.
You're
No,
doing
no,
good.
And
It's
anybody
just-
for that matter,
it's
please,
just-
be comfortable.
We
Take
like
your time.
it the way it is, it's just, it's the country. I mean, who would buy a house there? I wouldn't buy a house there. I would consider moving further north. I mean, I would get out of the area if you were to build there. I mean, yeah.
Okay.
I'd like to
Okay.
keep it the same.
Thanks.
Thank you
Thank
for your
you,
words. Chris? He spoke for you? Okay, great. Amy and Brian Knutson? you certainly don't have to, but please, we do appreciate your comments. Please don't ever think
Yeah.
we don't wanna hear people's comments. We do. It
Take
does
your
help,
time.
so.
Amy Knudsen, or Amy and Brian Knudsen, 1623 Viking Boulevard. So we're gonna be directly impacted by looking at this every day. My question is, the only access you said is off of Viking?
No, there's two accesses, but
Where was the other one gonna be then?
The new service road, that's,
Sand Hill Park.
yeah.
Yep.
Okay, because that's already brought in enough, there's enough issues on Viking as is. People, you know, it's a high speed there, it's 55, with the school across the street. Shoulder passing, you know, what are things gonna be if we're bringing in 300 and some houses? That's gonna up the amount of cars on this road. And the amount of traffic in front of our house and everything else with this other development that went on that we didn't like in the first place. Now we're adding more to it. Like everybody says, we moved out here for a reason. Well, you know, we've got 5 acres for a reason. We're not out here to be staring at houses squished together, even at a couple acres. It brings in a lot of people. I don't know, I think everybody's on the same page as that. That's all I have.
Thank you. Carol? Carlson?
Hi, my name is Carol Carlson. I live at 1945 189th Avenue, actually across the street from Phil and Patty, and next to Chris and Kyle. And anyways, you're
Oh,
seeing
if you could try to speak into the microphone, I really apologize. People online can't hear you when you're not there.
Okay.
It's
So you're saying 189th Avenue is just gonna be used for emergency vehicles only? Well, in all reality, it's not, because everybody's gonna find out about that road and they're all gonna use it. Because you only have 2 access going in and out of there. Again, Viking Boulevard will probably need to be widened because of the fact that that will cause a lot of traffic. We are concerned about 189th Avenue because in all reality, that was a cart trail. Our family has had that land that we live on for 90 years. And so, of course, we would like to see it stay rural in the 5 acre if we can, but I understand things change, things develop. And I get that, but we would like to have the least amount of impact on us. Like Kyle said, we're used to living out in nature. We have bonfires, we rev up our cars, we shoot and things like that. And 350 people that move in.
We hunt.
350 people that move in that area are gonna be like, oh my God, who's shooting? They'll probably be calling the police on us or whatever the case may be. I am curious as to where phase 1 will be, but I imagine the builder will talk about that. I would also ask that if 189th Avenue has to be paved, that is absorbed by the construction company, not by the people that live on that road, because we're not asking for this development, they are. So that should be their cost. And of course, I don't think that you can mandate that we have city water and sewer. Most of us have wells, etc. And we would not want to be mandated that we have to connect to city water and sewer. Okay. That's about, I think, my concerns.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll
Thank
be
you,
sure to
Carol.
try to address them all. All right. Stephanie and Jesse? Were you just signing in?
Yeah.
Okay, that's Design Earth, just making sure. People are allowed to weigh in. Paley Yang and Tang, or Tong, sorry.
It's Polly Yang and
Oh.
Tong Yang.
My apologies.
That's okay. I'm on 2234 189th. So my house is just right at the corner of where they're gonna build. I like my space. I like the peace and quiet. I have elderly parents. They live with me. They like to go outdoor. They like the nature. I mean, this is not something that we signed up for, and I don't like this idea at all. And my parents are very devastated to hear about this. And so, culturally, to them, it's not something that they want to be involved into this politics. But I think that it makes sense for us to speak our voice and to let you guys know that we want to keep the land as it is. We like where we're at, and we don't want change. So, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that is all I had on this list. Anyone else wishing to come up and speak in regards to this matter tonight? Please. Or re-come up. Yep. And again, just restate so people.
So, Patricia Affolter, 2030 189th. So I saw a lot of comments online that I just want to address. I currently have older kids at the moment. I don't know if this is the right commission to address this, but when my kids went to school, St. Francis School District was very, not enough teachers, not enough school buses, not enough drivers. This is going to impact our school district greatly to bring in this many houses and this many kids. So I just think it's something, if it's not this commission or another commission, should really address that. Thanks.
Great. Thank you. Again, anyone else wishing to speak on this before I have the developer come up and maybe help answer some of the questions as we go through them, maybe getting a nod in agreement so that they're okay with that. All right, at this time, Capstone, if you guys would like to come on up.
I'm also more than happy to help
Yeah, well,
answer as well.
as a group and with that, and I'll keep the public hearing open just for now because again, I know it's a passionate thing and I want to give everyone the opportunity to speak their mind on it. What I do ask though is in the audience, please hold the questions and the statements so we can get through them. And again, when they're done, I will ask if anybody else has other questions so we can make sure we hear what you need. It just, when there's the talk back and forth with the audience, sometimes the conversation gets lost and I don't want to do that. So out of respect for us, you, and the developers here, I want to make sure we do it well. So thank you.
Right, and to come up to the microphone rather than
yes.
sitting.
And that way it is also heard for the record because as our meeting minutes are recorded, it is a remote service that is watching the video that is typing them up as well. So.
And some of us are hard of hearing, so we need the microphone.
What? All right. Well, let's see here. I think we'll just go down the line, but if you want to introduce yourself, please.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chair and commissioners, staff, members of the public. We appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight, and we are here tonight to listen. And I think that's the important part of this meeting and public hearing is for us to get the feedback and hear your thoughts as well as the thoughts of the members of the public that are here tonight too. As you're aware, this is a concept that we've submitted, and as we walk through the process of refining that concept, we do a lot of work as a company to just really look into that, the different things, the zoning, the community impacts, all the different pieces that go into that. So it's great to have this open forum. We're appreciative of that. And I'll just introduce our company just a little bit. We did talk about this a little bit at our work session. Capstone is a local builder. We're in Ramsey. We've been in business in this area for about 25 years. And we work really hard at being an impact, a positive impact in every community that we serve. Right now we're building in 12 different communities around the region here, as well as 3 different states. So we're working hard to work in a lot of different communities for the better of those communities. So we do listen and we do want to hear that feedback, and as we spend some time with you tonight, we're looking forward to hearing some of those suggestions and thoughts. So
great.
Yeah, thank you.
And if you don't mind hanging out while we go through some
Absolutely.
of these, you can help address or not as we go through this with Aaron and us, if that's agreeable. And again, when we get through all these, I'll just ask for another quick round if anybody wants to follow up from the questions that have been asked, answered, and then we'll close the public hearing from there. Fair enough?
Very good.
Great. I'm assuming you already have some of it, so I have a list as well, but if you want to go through what you already feel you're ready to address from a staff point.
I will sort of encompass a lot of these in a few answers. Some of these are consistent themes, so that may answer. So our current city code and zoning districts are zoned to allow for certain developments, certain densities, certain lot sizes, certain combinations. So although you may be living next to a zoning district that is different than yours. The density by code allows for the parcel next to you to have a higher density than where you may live. That's what our code allows for. In terms of the use of the land, although the city has some regulation in use, it is a private real estate action. The owner, if you will, as long as they can comply with zoning and city code, would be allowed to essentially do what they want with their land as long as it's in compliance with the code. So that'll take care of a couple of the questions in terms of.
And Aaron, and to put that a little more plainly, if you don't mind, it's similar as a landowner, and as he talks about the private real estate transaction, this is again very different but similar aspect. As a landowner, if I have the ability to on my property build a detached accessory structure and I'm falling within all the proper codes, ordinances, and rules, I'm allowed to do that as a property owner in this transaction based on what their lot is zoned for and able to do. They, within that ability, they have that authority to do so. Correct?
Correct. Okay. The other common theme is.
Aaron, may I ask you just real quick? Is it possible to put the
Sure.
plan up on the screen so we can just kind of look at that a little bit as we're talking about it?
Yes.
And if I might just add, Mr. Chair, just a few comments on that. This was a big part of our discussion as we first started initiating this, when we came to this city staff and asked, what does the zoning look like in this region? And that mixed use, maybe go to that next slide, you can kind of see how, well, I guess, yeah, there we go, we can actually see the plan. That mixed use area had a lot of density opportunities with that. You can do commercial, you could do high density, mid density. There was a lot of different considerations in that, and then that rolls into R1 and then into the rural. And so as we were looking at this, we had to take that into consideration with that design. Our goal was to move some of our density away from some of those lines to kind of set that in motion to be where the commercial parcels are. So there is definitely consideration for that as we were looking at this, the layout. So just wanted to provide that additional feedback there. So.
No, it's always good to know and have the feedback from the inside track.
Since we brought this up, Matt, I would point out that the 30-acre parcel, if you will, in the lower right-hand corner, which is currently zoned rural residential, as you can see from the map, nearly, a third, a little more than a third, is wetland, green space, and ponds. So if you are a potential neighbor in that neighborhood, you can see the span of proximity that is currently proposed to the development, if you will. So that is a point to point out. In terms of the proposed density, I mentioned in the staff report that the current proposed density is 3.04 dwelling units per acre. That would be the entire density across the entire subdivision that is proposed. Our current comprehensive plan identifies a density range of 2.25 to 4 units per acre under the low density standard.
Can you clarify that for me and maybe for some people out here? 3.4 units per acre doesn't equate to 3.4 homes on the, I mean, that's clear within, where it says, the lots are gonna be a minimum of 2 acres in size, but can you explain that a little more?
Yeah, so if you take the general area, acreage, divided by the proposed number of homes, you're gonna get a decimal point, because nothing's ever gonna work out perfectly fine, perfectly even.
Yeah.
So the average density, if you will, is 3.04 units, dwelling units per contiguous acre, based on the spread in the subdivision.
Can I ask for clarification on that too? Does that include the unused space, the open space, and the unbuildable space that is used for runoff and ponding?
Yeah, we took a total, yeah, go ahead.
If I could answer that, yeah, it's a good clarification. I think if you actually look at the entire property that we are looking to create a neighborhood in, it's 165 acres. If you divide that by the 350, you're going to come out closer to 2 units per acre, which is the true, probably more closer to the true density. So the number that you're quoting, the 3.04, is just based off the buildable acreage, but we are sectioning off about 50 acres of this that are going to remain open space. So if you went on the true density, it actually would be closer to 2.2 or down on that, right at the very bottom of what we're anticipating in that low density yield.
So just to be real clear, we're not gonna see 6 or 8 houses in that lower density area per acre?
Absolutely. In the R1, we wouldn't be able to do that. That R1 zoning is up to 4. In the mixed use, that would have been something we could have done based on your current zoning. There's an opportunity to have done maybe an attached product that would have generated 8 units per acre, but we chose to deviate from that and go with our 2 single-family products, the Liberty as well as the Classic, which is what has now dropped it down to even that lower density margin in the 2s.
So if someone was trying to say, oh, you're just trying to jam them in, clearly you didn't, because you had opportunity to do more, to put it extremely plainly.
Absolutely. I did a little bit of a calculation on this, I think, based on the mixed-use development standards, and then the R1 and the rural. There was an opportunity to do, we have an attached townhome product that we could have put in there, which would have probably put 700 some homes in there. So, yeah, we've gone fully away from that. I think the market really doesn't say that that's necessary. So we're looking at that smaller single-family 45 as well as our 65-foot single-family.
Well, and I know for me personally, like I said, I can appreciate that. You know, again, I grew up in the trades as well, so again, I understand a little more what you're saying. And so again, knowing that you didn't maximize per dollar, I know for me is appreciative. So thank you for that.
Okay, traffic concerns, that seem to be a common theme through some of these. As a result of the amount of acreage that is proposed in the development, the developer is required to do what's called an environmental assessment worksheet, which also encompasses a traffic study. Granted, we have proposed city roads. We currently would be adjacent to or touching city roads, and we also have Viking, which is a county road. So the county engineer, city engineer, city staff, public works, I believe there's a state component in the environmental assessment worksheet, all have their hands in the design of the road, the engineering concerns, the number of turning lanes, the number of bypass lanes, the required distance from, as I said, a blind curve, shoulder width. All of those will be identified in the traffic study or the environmental assessment worksheet, which the city would then obligate the developer to comply with. So unfortunately, without having the traffic study done, we don't have any real facts to say 300 homes is gonna produce how many more cars at this intersection and how much more width is needed. I'm not an engineer.
Yeah. But it sounds like there's gonna be no lack of between city, county,
everyone having their
et
hands in
cetera.
it, it's gonna take a while. I do know when the city installed Sand Hill Parkway, which connects to Viking, the city was required to put in a bypass lane and I believe a turn lane, and we were given a certain time frame to get that done. The city is still in the process of working through the highway plan and the plan to go ahead and create those, but we do have a deadline to get those engineering components done based on the county's recommendation. So the county will have say in what happens on Viking. They will also have some say in the connection at 189th. As I said in my staff report, we did take an opportunity to drive out there today and just looked at sight lines, and the curve coming from the north is just extremely close to the intersection where 189th would make a connection. It would take probably some land acquisition and some significant engineering to make an intersection far enough away from that blind curve that I would think the county engineer would have some problems with that. So the conversation was, although 189th is a city street and could potentially someday be improved, it is on our map, it is designated as a city street. At this point, allowing it as a point of access for regular routine traffic would not be a recommendation of city staff and likely the county and or the city engineer.
Yeah.
It's just,
If you're seeing it at this level, the chances are those who are at the higher engineering level are gonna
Certainly.
notice it as well.
so in terms of the streets plan, the ordinance does require future connections to undeveloped land. So if you look at the proposal, there's a potential cul-de-sac here in the R1 zone, and then what could be a potential cul-de-sac at the RR, the rural residential site towards the bottom there. That's required by ordinance for future undeveloped land for a connection to those parcels of property. So when we see a street plan and we see those engineering things, we'll kick it off to our partners who would do those reviews to make sure that it's in compliance with our streets plan, utility plan, code plan. Matt, you have anything on that one?
No, we did have a long conversation with this, commissioners, about that exact question. Our plan is proposed as we were recommended to put the street connections and such together. So we would continue to rely on city staff, and as you mentioned, the county and state will all be involved in that discussion as the plan continues to move forward.
I have a question regarding access on the north side. Off of Viking, you've got Sand Hill. Is the other main road, is that the current golf course driveway?
No, the road that's going on to Viking, the current driveway is very narrow and it's right between the property line and the wetland.
Right.
So we had to consider a different location to connect onto Viking.
Be moving it
Alright.
west.
Yeah, it's just moved west just a little bit.
Okay.
And granted, again, the county engineer is going to determine whether the distance between intersections or driveways is acceptable, and they may
That's why I
make
was
other
asking,
proposals
'cause
and make
as I
the
come
other
off of
recommendations.
65 on Viking, you know, you pass Sand Hill, and then how many feet away is that other driveway, so.
Yeah,
okay.
and if you look, the city was permitted to put Sand Hill Parkway connection at Viking that close to the intersection at 65. It's probably less than a quarter mile. We would rely on the county engineer to tell us where we should look for approval of another connector to Viking.
Thank you.
It's about 990 feet, which is a little over
Yeah.
between a quarter and a eighth of a mile.
And again, the county engineer could say, that's absolutely too tight, we're not gonna permit that, find something else. And the county engineer might say, that may be allowable, but you need to take these action steps to make that a more safer intersection. We don't know what the county engineer is
Yeah.
gonna propose.
And again, that's why this is
A concept
conceptual,
plan.
hence
Yeah.
concept plan, which is why we have these discussions, so someone doesn't think anything's ever being railroaded, it is well thought through.
I have a question, not trying to open old wounds, but is this increase in density and traffic flow going to bring up anything with the current new Viking and 65 intersection? I mean, does city staff or anybody foresee any complications there? I mean, that's a fun turnaround
Yeah,
to begin with.
Granted, we could play hypothetical all day.
Yeah.
But that traffic study is really gonna tell us.
Mm-hmm.
And we would lean again heavily on the state
County and-
engineering,
yeah.
the county engineering, and the city
And
engineering.
I'm sure
So
MnDOT at some point, if it was affecting
the state is gonna have to be
65,
involved.
so, yeah.
Yeah,
So again, well beyond our reach.
I
on that.
don't have that great of a crystal ball, unfortunately.
Yeah, your foresight's been tested today.
All right. Okay, so beyond streets,
In terms of, city sewer and water connection beyond the
you.
municipal urban service boundary. The city's not in a position to require residents at the moment outside of this potential proposal to connect to sewer and water. We don't probably have the financial capacity to run enough city sewer and water lines to get to residents outside of what is currently proposed, and the developer's gonna be responsible for providing all of the infrastructure for this development anyway. It's not coming out of city dollars. Therefore, if you think about the extension beyond what the development is proposed, well, that's gonna require some significant action by the city council to find the funds to put the infrastructure in the ground. I don't know what's beyond the 2040 comp plan. I don't think we've done a 2050 or a 2060 comp plan.
No.
So at that point, that would be open for input for anyone who wants to join the conversation for 2050, 2060, 2070, and into perpetuity from that point on.
And correct me if I'm wrong, that is also beyond the 3/4 of a mile.
Correct,
From
that
that
is
area that you're
outside
describing.
of the defined area. So we are, as staff, exploring ways to either A, look at a potential rezoning of that particular parcel, or B, can we encompass it in a planned unit development, which would then meet with the comprehensive plan of the 3/4 of a mile because it's part of the planned unit development. I have and am waiting for a return phone call and conference with the Metropolitan Council to determine what is the best course of action if this proposal was to move forward for us to provide service to this parcel alone.
Yes, not anything
beyond.
surrounding, not any neighbors, not that,
Correct.
just the highlighted area currently in reference to this development only.
So I would love to have that answer, but the Met Council works at their own pace.
Yes.
And we're not the only city within the Metropolitan Council's region, so.
It would be a safe assumption to say at this point in time, residents would have zero concern based on current situations.
Our long-term comprehensive plan doesn't show any extension beyond that 3/4 of a mile boundary. So this is a very unique situation based on the land that is potentially or has been acquired by the buyer and its connection to the corridor at this point and the contiguous nature. Because over 70% of it is in the mixed-use district, we would require, as I showed you in the ordinance, a planned unit development proposal or an actual plan. Well, to disjoint a plan and then work across those 3 residential zones might be a little more difficult than creating parameters in an entire planned unit development to make this a desirable area based on what the community standard is, and then dictate how we want to see what we want to see in the entire area, instead of hypothetically, Capstone owns the property, they could come in, they could take the mixed use zone, as Matt's indicated, he could put 8 units per acre in that zone. He could move out to the R1 zone, which is 19 acres. They could put 1 per, I don't know, remember what the density is on there, and then they could move into the residential zone and do 2 acre lots. That's permissible by our current city code. So the fact that we would encompass or attempt to encompass, the entire area of land into a planned unit development would allow us to name parameters, if you will, for what we would like to see in terms of density, open space. Is what they have proposed an acceptable term or condition of a planned unit development? So there is a lot of control, if you will, by making this a planned unit development as opposed to requiring to meet the guidelines in each residential zone.
And again, and that's control that Capstone is allowing East Bethel to have over said property versus doing what could be done potentially as it reads currently.
That was really helpful, what you
Thank you.
just said.
So there are,
That was-
there are a number of complications, and like I said, we're gonna have to wait to hear from the Met Council on,
Some of it.
do we just need to amend the comp plan? Will they allow a planned unit development to exceed the 3/4 of a mile, the MUSA boundary? So there's still some what ifs, and again, until we have those answers, this is a concept. But again, if we can control things in an encompassing planned unit development, we gain a little more control.
Great.
if you
So
will.
with that, who does that negotiation then of the higher standards of development design that you talked about here? I mean, is that with you? Is that with the city council, planning commission?
Ultimately lands on the city council's lap to come to an agreement in terms with the developer.
Based on what they present.
The purpose of the meeting we had last week and the purpose of tonight's meeting is so that if you guys do have feedback, the developer would like to hear that feedback,
Right.
so that when they come in with a preliminary plat, we don't have to pick and choose or pull too many things apart or make too many alterations, because they'll have a concept leaving tonight, hopefully, that they can feel comfortable moving forward with to bring back with the lot block divisions, so you can see the specs, if you will, of what it's gonna look like.
To use a construction term, they're measuring 3 times versus cutting 3 times. So,
Because imagine if they took the feedback or no feedback, went and did a preliminary plat, brought it forward, you denied it, city council denies it, they go back to the drawing board, they bring it again. Like, how much money do we want
Like I
them to
said,
spend if
measure,
that
go
is
through
the
this
case?
practice 3 times to
Correct.
be able to cut once
So
instead of cutting
utilizing
3
the plan
times.
unit development
Yeah.
is beneficial to the city as well as the developer, because we can tell them what we want to see and they can work within the boundaries and make it happen.
Absolutely. Great. Thank you again for that. I think that covers, did you have any others that you had?
I think the only one is school impact. That is really beyond the city's control, although I do appreciate the foresight
Yep.
of the comment to work with the district on future plans.
Yep.
I do know, as a former school employee and former school board member, the current climate for hiring school employees is extremely difficult across the entire United States, not just East Bethel, not St. Francis, not Cambridge, not Isanti, not Blaine. It is a nationwide problem. So in terms of impact on the school, I understand the tax impact. The obligation is the school has to provide service for pupils that live in their district. Whether it's spread out across the 48 square miles or in this case brought into 165, the obligation is still there. So,
And they are aware of when our city approves developments, the school board, the school district is aware of those plans. So they know what the potential is for incoming students in the future. They do pay attention. So it's a conversation that is held quite often.
And I'll make a presumption here to get clear, openly admitting, I know minimal facts, but I'm under the impression that schools and school districts are afforded funds from the state based on number of residents, students, and set available, and in fact, one could make an argument saying this many extra houses in the district would give them X amount of extra dollars towards teachers' funds, schools, et cetera, to help with said things to help other students in nearby areas. Would just be a statement to make.
that is accurate. The only delay is it's always a year behind.
Didn't say it was perfect, just like I said, presumption.
To make that change would be a legislative, state legislative action.
Far beyond my pay grade.
The only other.
Sorry, one second, you had a comment?
Yeah, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, I think the other thing, there was a question about the phasing of the project.
Oh,
and so
thank you.
Sure.
There's 2 elements to this conversation with the school district, I think, that could be touched on with that a little bit. This project is a mini-year project. So you are correct, there will be tax dollars that will be enjoyed by the city as well as the county, the state, and in many areas to be able to fund different elements of infrastructure, government, schools. So that is one component that comes with new residential housing, as well as you mentioned, state funds kind of kick in with that a little bit too as you bring in more residents. We're planning on phases that stretch several years. This is not a one-year project. This is many years. It'll take us probably 5 to 7 years maybe in the terms of how we develop the entire neighborhood and the community. So that also gives some of that time for growth components within the school district to catch up with potential for new students, new people coming into the area. So there is a time factor with the phasing and with the process of putting the development and the community together that help that element a little bit.
Great.
So.
Thank you for that extra information.
As designed, is there just one access now for the 350 homes on Viking? Is that the only access for everyone living there?
No, there's the 2 access points. The main entrance will be on the north end, and then the second entrance will be on Sandhill.
Yep.
Both going to Viking though, right?
Yeah, correct. The Sandhill could either go to Viking or go south to Briarwood, or what is it, 187?
Yeah, the roundabout where the quick trip will be.
Yeah.
Out to 65.
Right up to 65.
But before we get too far in any extra of our discussion, since we do still have the public hearing open, it pleases the board, I'll just, and again, unless you had any further comments to add at the moment,
I can step back.
Thank
if
you.
Anybody else want to?
Yep, so again, I'll just give one last call out again to the public while the hearing is still open, because again, after hearing feedback and answering questions, any last minute questions here, please come to the podium. Again, state your name and address for the record so we know who's speaking.
Kyle, 2043 189th Ave. What was the company name that the development? Yeah. So Capstone Homes claims that they are to better a community. I feel that this is not going to better East Bethel community at all. I see that. Is the owner here today of Capstone Homes? Of course not. I feel he is a money-hungry developer that needs to stay out of East Bethel.
Thank you for your comments.
Phil Affolter, 2030 189th Avenue Northeast. I want some clarification on this 30-acre parcel here. How many homes are you talking about putting in this area? I just want it in plain language. Keeping in mind that I know this is unbuildable, so now my understanding is you're trying to convince a lot of homes using the metric of so many homes per acre, but each individual lot is going to be smaller than 2 acres. Is that my understanding?
Well, again, this is a concept plan. We can ask the developer to make whatever adjustments as necessary. I would defer to the developer as to what they have proposed long-term for this acreage and spaces and size of homes in that rural residential area. That's the developer.
Sure. Like I said, and again, I'm just to the north of there, so that impacts me greatly if I'm going to see 10 houses in my backyard versus 2 or 3. So, most concerned about that.
Yep, just give her the opportunity. Do you want to quickly, do you know approximately what your projected? Sorry, real quick, just have the bill come on.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, yeah, I think we're still aiming to look at that flexible element of
Sure. Yeah,
of the structure, so it ends up being roughly 2 units per acre. Somewhere in there is what the current R1 is.
Okay.
So, and this was the feedback we're looking for, is to understand the homeowners and what's around that and feedback on that. I think there's some opportunities for us to take that feedback and look at this a little bit and see what we can do and adjust to handle some of those
Thank
questions.
you. So to be determined. Thank you.
Yep.
Great. Ma'am?
Carol?
My name is Carol Carlson, 1945 189th Avenue Northeast. I do have a question because off of 189th, on the 10th hole of the golf course, right now, if we get heavy rain, all of that runoff from the rain runs right across to 189th and then floods in that area. So I just want to make sure that they're going to make provisions to make sure that their development isn't running off, you know, that they're diverting their runoff to their ponds, not to 189th Avenue to flood our front yards.
Yeah, and again, I'll be presumptuous here. Assume that, again, because it is within the boundaries of what the planned unit development would be, that would be a requirement that they manage the water that comes from their property.
Okay, I'm just checking.
Yeah, no,
Thank you.
and as that could be a betterment to 189th.
Question.
Am I right in that presumption area?
Yeah, there's state law regarding drainage and runoff that don't allow it to be moved outside of your own contiguous parcel of property, with the exception of county ditches and those kind of things. So
Thank you for the
they wouldn't be able to
confirmation.
grade the site, if you will, away from their own existing ponds, which you can see
Yeah.
they've proposed multiple ponds there to handle.
Yeah.
There's a runoff standard that would get applied, and our city engineer would ensure that
So in
that is
fact, that may
taken
be an
care of.
improvement to the area.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
My name's Polly Yi again. I'm on 2234 189th Avenue. So the new homes are going to be built right behind my backyard. We're off of 5 acres. And again, I echo what everybody said tonight. I'm concerned for the peace and quiet of that. And, you know, I like where I'm at, and I like my neighbors, and, you know, I don't want to see any change. And so I sincerely hope that you guys take our voice into consideration and think about this project. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Anyone else? Nope.
So 189th, the street has been
It's
addressed.
Patty, right?
Patty Affolter,
Thank you.
2030 189th. So I just want so it's been addressed to be a emergency exit, but I want to, how do you stop that? How do you stop the traffic from going in and out of there? Is there something way that that's going to be dressed or blocked off? Or is it going to be a through road that people are still going to be able to use? Because they will use that access point. That is a death trap. It already is. So I don't want to see my kids get killed right there, leaving my home. So you have to address the traffic going down that road. That's all I have.
And again, I think Aaron did a great job of, again, reminding everyone that, county, city, engineering, it's gonna be going through quite a process to take a look at that. And, again, the feedback is important. That will be in a consideration. That is one of the things Aaron is tasked with as far as making sure those comments make it through that process so it's not lost and it is addressed. And if there was a concern down the road after, again, projecting if something were to happen to be there and there was an issue or look like it's going to be an issue, I would, as with anything currently, I would ask any residents to speak up, reach out to the city, let them know any concerns that are going on, and they can be addressed at that time.
I just have one question.
If you could come to the podium, though, please state your name and address.
Tracy Johnson, I'm on 1925 Briarwood Lane. So is 189th going to be connected to this development?
As an emergency, supposedly.
Only just emergency?
At this time, sounds like it still needs to be reviewed by engineering.
Because then I'm concerned, because then people would be taking a Briarwood to 68 to 189th. We already have enough traffic on Briarwood. We have people fly down Briarwood all the time. I'm just concerned because people hit our deer and everything else. And I don't want people taking that shortcut because they already do take shortcut from 65 to 68. So I'm just concerned.
Thank you for your concern.
I just didn't want more traffic.
Yep, and again, I'll be presumptuous here. Aaron, I would assume presume in said studies that, in fact, it could actually, again, if Briarwood ends up being reviewed as well for traffic, that could identify any current issues that may be there and possibly resolve any as well, or not. Again, I'm going to defer to, again, those who are above me in something like that, because again, I'm not an engineer.
And at the completion of the environmental assessment worksheet, I believe there is a public hearing publications requirement to solicit feedback from the public, specifically on the findings of the environmental assessment worksheet. So all of these concerns are very important and should be considered, and folks will have the opportunity to review the completion and the compilation of the environmental assessment worksheet to allow them, again, afford them an opportunity to make future and more comments based on what the engineer came up with, what the state came up with, what the DOT came, like all of those things will be in the environmental assessment worksheet.
Great, thank you again for that. All right, any last questions before we close the public hearing? Yep, please come to the podium, state your name and address. Feel free to move the chair, make it easy on yourself. Path of least resistance.
Paul Steinbrecher, 2211 Briarwood. I'm wondering, is there going to be another public hearing before this is approved for further input or consideration?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Again, this is a public hearing on the concept, right? And and then there's going to be, depending on if they want to come back with more, ask for more feedback, or if they come back with a site plan review, there'll be another public hearing. Again, there'll be multiple public hearings as this goes along.
Because if the city sets a precedent of rezoning the R2 section of this to R1, is that precedent going to take place for the rest of that section of land, or just the development?
Again, Aaron, correct me if I'm wrong, but it would be part of the planned unit development, which would make it restricted only within the boundaries of their property.
Okay. So
not any neighboring, not the whole area. It would be just in regards to their land.
Each proposed planned unit development is evaluated based on its own standards, its own zone, its own encompassing facts, if you will.
Yeah.
Right.
That just because it approved in one location doesn't mean that it's gonna be approved in another proposed location. If you think of Viking Preserve, which is on the west side of 65 near the water tower,
Okay.
that's a pretty dense chunk of land. I wouldn't necessarily agree with allowing that density in anywhere other than where they've proposed it. For that purpose alone.
Thank you.
Yes.
Just for clarification, this is just the beginning of a process. The approval tonight doesn't guarantee a final approval of this development. This is a feedback session for the developer to understand what we want as a community. And so this just begins the conversation and lets them know that they can proceed with further investigation and make an investment. It doesn't mean that we're approving the final development and they can proceed with building at this time.
And point of clarification for you, Joe, again, there's actually nothing to approve tonight, as this
Exactly.
is information discovery
Thank you.
only for the concept. So again, like I said, this is why we hold the public hearings. We want to give residents the opportunity to speak. I say we when I speak as the city as a whole, as a volunteer. I am a resident. I am not a paid, elected, anything here as all of us. The only ones who are elected mostly are on city council. So again, we are residents too. We live near and around and in various areas throughout the city. I'll give a quick plug actually to the group we have up here, and as someone who's been on here, and Glenn, I think you beat me on the tenure as far as this goes, but really, we have a very diverse group of individuals here that have a very diverse background, and we come from all walks of life, and I think we've all done a really good job of getting along and being able to bring different viewpoints. So again, we are not just a body of rubber stampers saying, hey, yep, let's just get it done by any means. Like I said, we want people's feedback. We want to hear it. These are the opportunities to do it. I'm glad to see so many residents engaged, because we have had things in the past where we've had this room completely empty for what would feel like major things, and without the feedback, we don't know. We're going off our opinions, which again are also residents, with some experience up here. But so again, I reiterate, when people have questions on stuff, please don't ever be afraid to reach out and ask. I would rather have someone take the time to answer your question than live with assumptions and have uninformed information out there in the world, because unfortunately, as we know, you can't believe everything on the internet. So, sorry, my rant is over. With that being said, unless anyone has any last questions, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. Seeing no one standing or raising hands, public hearing is closed.
I just have one final follow-up, Mr. Chair.
Yes, please.
There was a concern about hunting or shooting. I just wanted to point out that
5 acres.
Although there is no prohibition to hunting within the city limits of East Bethel, we do prohibit hunting on city-owned property and or county-owned property. The only real restrictions are that we do not allow for the discharge of a firearm within 500 feet of any dwelling, house, or commercial or industrial building, without written permission of the person who owns the property, occupies the dwelling, all those sort of common sense provisions. So if you do live on a 5-acre parcel and you do hunt, for instance, although it's not prohibited, the regulation is within discharge of a firearm. So keep those parameters in mind when you are enjoying your Second Amendment rights.
Absolutely. And if someone calls and has a problem with it, they can have that conversation, and they'll be informed of said information as well. So with that, I don't believe we need a motion, so I will just open up for further discussion on the concept.
Well, I have two things. First of all, I just want to thank all the folks that gave some impact or input tonight. It's a really, really important issue for all of you, and it's nerve-wracking to get up there. So thank you to everybody who gave input. And the second thing that I wanted to talk about with the developer then is the real sticking point seems to be that 30 acres, the southeast corner. And I would just ask if you could do anything to mitigate the the concerns that people have. That's the big point.
On that point, I wanted to recommend that the northern strip of that parcel have considered, and also part of the one above it on the east side, some kind of buffer of trees or berms or combination. I know you probably have this thing with the roads, it's tightly mapped out to be able to fit a certain amount of homes in that space with the frontage and the yards and whatever. But if they were able to shift down slightly and you had a buffer so that the people that have their yards right butting up against that don't see a bunch of homes in their backyards but see a tree line, that would help contain that visually at least, and possibly with noise to some extent.
Minimize some of the impact.
That's a really good point.
I was looking same and similar, trying to bring up the satellite aerial of how many houses are.
It's same with on the east side of that block, the upper half of the east side. A lot of the green space occurs where it's not adjacent to homes, but also similarly, well, I don't know what is on the larger section, the east side, what that abuts up against, whether that's as important or not.
So that's that square there.
That's that 30 acres there?
Yep. So as far as those residents, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
And also those living across the street who are going to be looking at that development as well, across 189th.
So whatever could, so your statement is whatever could potentially help impede the visual impact.
Right.
For out there back areas. Oh, I know that golf hole.
And then my other concern was that if the two access points are both on the north side of this development, if something were to happen anywhere around where the city park is proposed, or somewhere in that road where the road was blocked, let's say a heavy winds took trees across it or something, and suddenly the access is blocked, all these couple hundred homes are kind of boxed in there without a southern escape route, or if there were a major fire or something.
That's why Commissioner Terry, we've proposed to figure out some sort of emergency access only off of 189th should that potential scenario as you've described happen. We don't know the exact way that could happen, but an idea to explore for sure.
Yeah.
If it's not gonna be.
Well, sir, I can step up. No, we've closed the public hearing at this time. We do understand the concerns. Please know we do. Again, we're just having a discussion on it, and again, it will try to be addressed.
The only rebuttal, if you want to even call it a rebuttal, is there is a dedicated right-of-way for the city road and this cul-de-sac that is in existence. The city has jurisdiction within that right-of-way, and that's essentially what we would figure out how we could control that access
Right now,
within that right-of-way.
Sir,
It's not access.
Sir, I understand that. We've heard your concerns. I'm gonna just ask you to please.
When the city administrator and I were down there today, the gate was wide open and there were carts going back and forth off of the cul-de-sac to the property. So there is access.
I understand.
We understand there's access. We want to address it in some way as well. Again, we got this application last Wednesday, so we're in the process of working through these details.
Correct.
But do appreciate the concern.
Absolutely.
And it is also our concern.
Can I
That's why we're
present?
asking.
the information that I sent to you about regarding the vision plan and what it suggests we do here. So there's a lot of words here, but I'll read them. So this is a mixed-use district. The Viking Meadows concept plan is proposed in a mixed-use area of the city. Concept plan provides for only residential development, does not meet the conditions described in mixed-use development description. What the purpose of mixed use is to create an urban feel that's walkable. And our mixed use guidelines are to contain 72.5% low density residential, 20% general commercial, and 7.5% high density. This current proposal only has residential. So based on the guidelines, the recommendation is include commercial outlots of development near Sandhill Parkway. That's very valuable land. It would get gobbled up by commercial pretty quickly if you left those as outlots, and it would help us follow what our vision is and allow people walking, walkability to restaurants or even retail stores. Could you go to the next one? This slide, another wordy slide, but this is a table describing the roadways around our city. Viking is considered a minor arterial roadway. The current speed limit is 55. Full movement intersections, meaning that you can turn to the right or cross over and go to the left, need to be spaced at a half a mile. Our currently Sandhill Parkway is not in compliance with this, since it is under an eighth a mile. In order for us to become into compliance with what our guidelines are, we would need to reduce the speed limit or ask the county to reduce the speed limit to 35 miles an hour at that intersection. If we were to reduce it to 40 to 45 miles an hour, it would be allowable to have a turn right only lane, but a median would have to be built so that people don't turn left onto that. This is our guidelines.
Where are you going with this, Joe, just out of curiosity?
I'm just trying to describe what's going on in the area for road development and the potential need that we're gonna have to have 2 lanes going east, 2 lanes
Are
going
you
west.
qualified to do a traffic study?
Well, we haven't had one, and that's
Right.
required in section 66 of this this consideration. If we wanna go to the end, I can show you where that is, cause that hasn't been submitted.
I was just trying to indicate that we're here tonight to talk about the concept of it.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to make it
no,
contentious.
no,
I'm just trying to describe what's going on.
If I could finish.
Well, you cut me off when I was describing what was going on around here, so.
And I wanted to make sure it was pertinent to the meeting in regards to the concept, to give feedback to the developer who's here tonight, to hear feedback on it, and I didn't want to go through a full presentation if we're able to just give them the facts of what your concern is.
This is gonna be relating to the use of Sandhill Parkway and the proposed other egress, which might be called Viking Meadows Drive. And I don't want you guys to feel like I'm against development. I'm just presenting what's in our vision plan. This is not my opinion. It's what we've agreed to in our 2040 comp plan.
Great, I just wanted to make sure that, so it's a concern with the road usage based on what the engineering will come up with.
Correct.
Great.
So in current state, without a traffic light, should we follow the guidelines, leaving Sandhill Parkway should only go to the east. Hopefully we can convince the Anoka County to build that as an intersection and reduce the speed so that we're within our guidelines. Just so you know. So could you go to the next slide? This is a proposed intersection. It's within a half a mile. Again, consideration here is the reduced speed on Viking that doesn't exist. This will have to be reduced to 35 miles per hour to allow exit to the left and to the right, potentially.
And where do you get that information, Joe?
It's based in our vision plan, our comp plan. This is everything that I pulled out of here came from our 2040 comp plan.
So we're not gonna tell the county what speed limit they're gonna post on a county road. We can't do that. The county will tell us what speed limit they're gonna put on the road.
That's why the traffic study's being done.
And that's where I was kind of going with it, is I don't, in the interest of time, and for everyone involved, I wanted to get more more direct to what your initial concerns are, even though knowing
This
we're
leads
gonna
up
have
to
these
the
studies.
density of houses and the ability for them to leave the neighborhood. And the main concern is if there's no ability for them to leave, it's gonna create traffic conditions within your community, which might cause residents to bail on your community.
Yeah, I think we're all concerned about that, and these people are very concerned about it too.
I'm just trying to get this on the public record. Just please let me get through it. It's only gonna take about 10 minutes, maybe 5. But if we keep talking about how it's inappropriate for me to say this,
I didn't say it's inappropriate, I
gonna
just said
take
in the interest of
all
time,
night.
if you could please bullet point what your concerns are with it.
the bullet point, just let me finish, please. So again, these two proposed intersections are very close to 65. They're within a half a mile of each other. And within our guidelines, there's significant issues with what Anoka County is gonna let us do, or what Anoka County will do with Viking. Next slide. This is where the proposed intersection is for context. Again, it's less than a half mile from 65. Next slide. In the current state, under our guidelines, Sand Hill should only be a right turn only. This is not what the current state is. But if we were to follow guidelines or get Anoka County to follow guidelines, that section of road is gonna turn at 35 miles an hour and potentially have a stoplight. Hopefully, we can convince them to do that. Next slide. This is where, for context, this is the photo. Next slide, please. With the current conditions and the guidelines as a right turn only, if a median is to be put in, and this isn't to become a 35-mile-an-hour road, this potential traffic impact to start of the North Academy, as drivers are going to find an ingenious way to divert back towards the highway. Next slide. We also have a transportation analysis zones that was conducted by the Met Council for development. Your planned development is in TAZ 3, which describes what we forecast for growth. Next slide. As you can see here in 2040, projected households in TAZ 3 is 460 units. When we look at Elevage, which is a planned development with 213 households, and then your development with additional 370, this puts us approximately at 583 units in this TAZ, which surpasses our housing forecast by 160% by 2030. Not 2040, but by 2030. So the point of this is to show that the Met Council and the state have not planned, and the roadway development's not in a state yet to support this. Again, hopefully we can work with the county and the state to change their plans, but really all these last slides have shown is that this is going to create a lot of traffic that we haven't planned for and we're not ready yet. Next slide, please. This is the MUSA 2030 map. The green and black line denotes what that area is. The 35-acre parcel that's been talked about tonight resides outside.
30.
Excuse me, 30 then.
Get your
As
facts straight.
the vision plan, I guess, is not enforceable. What our vision is in the plan is to keep this around 10 acres. I think everybody has suggested that they'd be amenable to rural residential. Of course, that's up to you to make that decision on your next plan. And again, this is in our vision plan. I'm trying really hard to keep my opinion out of it. Next slide, please. I showed this earlier today, and this is just documentation, just describing what our vision was around land that's outside the urban service boundary in the future growth area. Next slide. This is section 66-41. This is the information around concept plan, which we were talking about tonight. Multiple things that I guess I didn't see in the packet covered, including current and proposed land use and zoning. We saw a plat map, but not the zoning map. Evaluation by the applicant that the subdivision would not be determined to be premature pursuant to the criteria outlined by the comp plan, which I'm trying to advocate for tonight. Additionally, with the concept plan, a hydrologic characteristics study needs to be submitted, which is described. Also, site vegetation, cover type, woodland area boundaries, individual trees having a diameter at breast height of 18 or more inches, and then different vegetation types. Being that it's a golf course, there's a lot of really mature and beautiful trees there that I think we'd hate to see go as a green city. Moving on to the next one, the transportation system. In the proposal that was submitted, functional classifications, current projected traffic volumes, general conditions and provisions for alternate modes of transportation were not submitted in the proposal, and hopefully we can get those by the next meeting. Moving on to the next slide. While you did present a general idea, our concept subdivision plan, our concept plan does ask for a lot layout. And then additionally, size and location of commercial and industrial buildings, which you haven't put into here, but based on the mixed use request and vision, hopefully we can find a way to include those in this development. And that's all I have. That's literally all from the vision plan. Those aren't my words.
Joe, please know, I can very much appreciate the hard work you put into that. I'm not negating that. And I think that's something that'd be easily forwarded on to the developer as Joe's initial thoughts with it, so that way they can see that. I appreciate you speeding it up and hitting the major points for each page for us, so thank you.
Mr. Chair, in response to those concerns, again, getting back to the plan unit development and the standard and the ordinance, the primary purpose of a plan unit development provision is to allow for flexibility and variation from conventional ordinance standards, in exchange for potential higher standards and or development design and creativity, architectural control, natural resource protection, landscaping, parks, private and public, open space, as I can go on and on and on. This is your opportunity to give the parameters on what you want to see on the plan proposal.
Exactly.
Yep.
And respectfully, that's all I was trying to do. So those are what's in our vision plan. Obviously, a PUD is going to suggest other things, but my personal feeling is that closer you get to the vision, the more digestible this development will be for everyone in our community. So I really appreciate you guys coming and showing ambition and trusting that our community is going to be a good place for your development. I do appreciate that.
And in terms of missing application material, that is all on me. There is no point on them doing a lot of those items without knowing what direction we want to go. They're going to be spending time, money, resources, gobbling up an engineer's time to put together something that may never even get off the ground. When we have those items, based on their feedback, we will bring them forward. So I didn't see any purpose in having a conversation about what we want to see as a standard, a requirement based on application material A, B, C, D, E. We'll get those items as part of the next phase of the concept plan or preliminary plat, should they come to that next level. And the requirements in a preliminary plat are significantly more than the requirements in the concept plan. So we'll get them all, I assure you.
Do you know if there's any possibility to access or acquire land so that the southernmost part of the road could connect either to Briarwood or 68 without having to be using the 189th?
Not to be comical, Commissioner Terry, but if you want to buy the land and donate to the city, we'd be happy to make that connection.
Well, I'm asking if there's anything available for the developer. If we need another access point, is there a means to do that, or is it just all filled with homes and not?
Yeah, it's my understanding in a couple of conversations with the developer they have been out in the neighborhood, they've talked to neighbors, they've sent letters, they've made opportunities to make connections. So I would safely assume that if there was an opportunity for them to buy more land south of there, they are in the process of doing that right now. If it's not available to them, then they're probably not going to acquire it. As I said, by statute, we have to at least provide an extension or a roadway to undeveloped property. So that's ultimately all that we can obligate them to do at this point. Unless we want to spend tax dollars acquiring property and easements and putting in roads.
Thank you, well said. Any other discussion points or items we can give them for feedback?
I am going to really expedite this just for the sake of time. Just kind of in response to several of the residents here. Kind of from the top for Mr. Kyle, who I think he took off at this point. I heard him, have concerns about, this being a money-hungry developer and coming in just to gobble up land. And, I mean, that's understandable when it's in your backyard. But I would encourage him to, and the rest of us too, to hear, I believe it's Matt, is it Matt? As he was speaking, they made very intentional lines in the sand where they pulled back from the amount of density that they could have. Their goal is not to come in and take over, it's to come in and merge and be a part of what we already have going on here. And I think I understood that clearly, and again, I know it's hard when it's in your backyard. But that's what I hear coming from you, Matt. As far as peace and quiet, Ms. Pauley, in my mind, I moved to East Bethel for the exact same thing, and I would sure think that anybody moving this far north of the city has that exact same intention. They're not moving up here to cause a ruckus, or again, at least that's the hope. You got 350 homes going in. There's going to be some bad eggs, but I foresee that being people's goal when they come up here is to get away. And I think maybe our objective, our goal as current residents is to lead people into that, be a part of welcoming them in. I know when I first came onto the commission, I believe the gentleman's name was Tom, whose seat I took. And that's one of the things he said, at some point we all came here looking for this, and we still have that to offer. So we can do this, and I agree, let's bring our concerns to the table, but we have something to offer that these people are going to want, and I think we should cherish and focus on that instead of fighting it. Obviously, we have an opinion, we can dial this back how we need to, but and then as far as I think Carol, you mentioned shooting guns, like let's do it, let's welcome them with the 21 gun salute. This is East Bethel, within those restrictions, of course. So that's all.
Gabe?
Yeah, I just kind of wanted, what you said makes a lot of sense, Gabriel. There is potential for inequity issues to arise by having a development that doesn't match the neighbors, the power sports users, the hunters, the people that like to be outside and have big bonfires. And so in your design considerations, I hope you guys take that into consideration, that we would like a community that does share some of those interests. We are the gateway to the north, and we're surrounded by lakes and wooded areas. And if this neighborhood doesn't match that, we're gonna have very dissimilar people that may want more urbanization in the future, which is really gonna overpower the rural areas, because these people are gonna be so close. Their communication is gonna be a lot better just because they don't have to walk long distances to see their neighbors. And I mean, that's good that they're going to, have a closer knit community, but there's also the issue of displacement of rural neighbors if this doesn't fit a similar character of the rest of the community.
I just want to commend you for the listening that you're doing. I've never been through a process like this where somebody has sat there and really, really tried to understand what's going on. I think you've reached out a lot, and I appreciate it. The one other thing that I just want to say is that, it sounds very scary to have 350 houses in area like that. It could be so much worse. You know, like you're saying that you could do 8 units to an acre.
Townhome component.
Duplexes and apartment buildings.
Mm.
Right,
Yeah.
and, so, thank you.
The only final offer I would have is that if any resident wants to provide more feedback, pick up my card on the way out. Feel free to give me a call, leave me a voicemail. My email is on there. I can facilitate the conduit of information back to the developer. If you come up with other ideas after you leave here tonight and want to provide that information, and I'm certain contact information for Capstone is available on their website too. If you want to circumvent your city connection and go right directly to the developer, I'm sure they would be happy to take your calls as well. But I'll do my best to bring that information between the two of us, the city and the developer.
Thank you. And again, I don't say, again, I think.
I got one other thing. I think it was Patty. You had said you have young boys, teenage boys now? No, who had the teenage boys off of 189th?
I think she left. I think the gal that said that left.
Sure.
Amy?
Okay. Well, either way, you know, back when I was living in more of a suburban, tighter neighborhood, I actually met my wife of 11 years, 5 houses away, and those are, you know, types of opportunities that you won't have, you know, living, you know, quarter mile apart from your neighbors, you know. So, yeah, that's a bad. They don't work out. Those aren't 11-year strong marriages.
No, again, I'll extend a huge thank you again to all the residents, all your feedback. Thank you very much, Capstone. Again, like I said, I too can appreciate, like I said, what you guys are trying to do. You know, and again, like Aaron said, if you guys have feedback, please reach out to him. He'll make sure it gets to said developer. I will echo, again, a little bit of what my committee or commission members have said earlier too. You know, there's another development, the street escapes me at the moment, but it was, you know, 26 homes being built off a piece of farmland that was right next to 2 other streets. And like I said, I won't name them out, but, you know, they came up here as well saying, hey, look, you know, we've got deer here, we've got this, we've got that. And not, you know, we didn't want it next to us, we don't want it next to us. And the landowner who had sold the land to said developer, you know, in a very earnest way, did come up and help remind everybody that, you know, once upon a time, her family owned all of that land, including where their homes were. So just as passionately as those residents got up and spoke about where their home is and how they want to help maintain it, that, you know, once upon a time, they didn't have that. And this is another opportunity to extend that out to new neighbors and give new people who want an opportunity to come out into a quiet area to be able to come here. And again, we get the opportunity to work with a developer who's not trying to fit every inch and squeeze it for every drop it's got. And that is rare in today's time. So please do consider that as well, you know, when you're thinking about this as well. So, because they do have rights to do things with the property that they do, just as you do with your property. Like I said, if I want to build an accessory structure and it's within my ability to do that, I can do that. If I want to remove trees out of my backyard, and not that I would because I don't want to hear Viking any more than I already do, you know, I have that right to do so, and they do as well with their land as you do with yours. So, like I said, the fact that they're coming forth and taking now multiple opportunities in the first couple weeks of their initial application here to really hear what the residents have. This is different. We don't see this too often, so please do remember that this is somebody who is listening. So again, if you have concerns, please reach out to Aaron and he will make sure they get passed along. So that's all I have on it tonight. I think we've given plenty of feedback unless anyone has any last minute comments. You guys feel, have we gotten everything? Do you have any other questions of us or anything you think you need?
They have plenty.
No, I appreciate this. Is a lot of great information. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So,
Mr. Chair, as a point of order, we can skip item 6
Okay.
due to time. We can move that to July.
Certainly.
As an ordinance revision discussion might take a little longer than we want. We can put it on a fresh agenda where we have some time where we haven't sat and had conversations for the last 2 hours.
Thank you. I would.
That is completely up to you unless you
No,
are
Make a motion.
wanting to do that.
I will entertain a motion to table
it until
item
July.
6 to the July meeting.
I will make a motion.
I have
To table.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion before we vote?
Thank you.
Nope, hearing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so that will be moved to the July meeting. Thank you very much, Aaron, for that reminder.
You bet.
And moving on to item 7, council update. I would like to welcome council member Bob DeRoche back as a council liaison. Bob has been a former council member from years past, who was, I believe, just appointed last night. If my news is up to date.
And mayor.
Interesting night.
Welcome.
So I hear.
Yeah, he was mayor for,
Oh, he was, yeah.
Just
I
like
think
the
he
old
said,
days.
didn't
Hopefully not.
for sure.
Bob?
New days.
Only better.
Whatever.
Just as an update, the Nexus conduit bond presentation, we put off till July 10th. Am I right, Aaron?
July 10th, that's correct.
There's still some information we're trying to gather, numbers. And as much as people would like to think we're dragging our feet, we want to make sure that we cover all the bases. Because in the past, there's been decisions made not necessarily thought out all the way. One of the biggest things seems to be the school district. And, you know, of our having to staff that, or having to rent. And some of the numbers have changed from when they first spoke. Before I got up back on the council, I was watching the meetings at home. And so I'd get some bits and pieces. But unless you're here, you just don't pay enough attention. The public hearing on the ordinance to create the new spot community development director was put on hold until the 10th, I believe. Mainly that one, and the one as far as naming the community development director, I didn't want to vote on it last night because I don't know enough about it. I haven't had the notes, the paperwork. I don't know anything about it, and I'm not going to vote on something I don't know. Just as you wouldn't, I hope. Other than that, Booster Day is coming up. They're looking for volunteers. So if you're got nothing going on, you're welcome to do that. That's all I got.
Thank you very much. Welcome back. Thank you for the
Thank
update.
you.
I think me emceeing Booster Days one year wasn't more than plenty.
The only addition I would have, council member, is which we already talked about, was the approval of the amended ordinance for exterior storage in the commercial districts
Yeah, we did
that
pass
we amended or proposed in May's meeting, was approved per your amendment recommendation. So
good to know. Thank you.
So that one got through.
Right. All right. Well, if you're all finished, then I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right,
Second.
motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.
Okay.
you've missed some of the fun ones. I mean, you weren't here.
Well, I've seen them on TV.
Yes, I am. Yeah, I'm his grandson. Probably. No, that would have been my dad. So, my dad is Randy, so he would have been he would actually, that year, yes, he would have probably been the one to build it. No, he had a fall a number of years ago. And,
I just look like it, but not really.
yeah, no, but I still live just down the street from grandma,
Yeah,
so.
you bet.